Well, I was just getting ready to wrap up for the day, and boom, we get hit with another bomb article. This one comes from Keith Pompey, and it's about, yes, you guessed it right, Jimmy Buckets. Could the Sixers land him back in Philadelphia this offseason? Now, I thought this article was pretty interesting, intriguing, but also comical in a few ways. So we will talk about that. We will get into it. If you did not see the video yesterday or the one before that, I highly recommend you check those out. We've been talking about, potential trade targets floating around or ways the Sixers could go this offseason, knowing that this is really their last chance. They have to get it right. And yesterday we really established, that PG is the number one option right now for the 76ers. And option number two, at least it seems, is Brandon Ingram. But Jimmy Butler's always been there. He's always been in the mix. He's always been a topic of conversation. And, if the Heat really were to move on, which I still can't see happening, but if Pat Riley said enough of the antics and some of the rumblings we've heard about that, or, they just think Butler's going to get injured too much and they have already hit their peak, like they had their chance in the finals those couple times, then maybe they do move on. But we need to get into this article because I think it is hilarious. But welcome into Philly Take with RB. Do me a favor. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the show. Appreciate everybody staying tapped in during the off season. So just a couple minutes ago, we get this from Keith Pompey, puts it on Twitter. Sources, Sixers prepared to give Jimmy Butler a max extension if the Miami Heat star is traded. Now, I put this out on May 8th. So this was 20 days ago. And I said, if it came down to Jimmy Butler and Paul George, I am taking Jimmy Buckets every single time. Now, again, this comes with all these consideration factors, health and age and durability and playoff status and all these types of things. I just like Jimmy because, again, he's already had that rapport here with Joel Embiid. He's been in Philadelphia. He has that clutch gene. He has that tenacity, that grittiness in his game. And I just think he is very close to Joel Embiid, and those two have a really good relationship together already. Obviously, I've said yesterday and days before that, PG seems like a very good fit with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. But let me say overall on both of these, I still don't think they should give a max to Jimmy Butler or Paul George. If it came down to a max between either one, I don't want either one. And it almost feels like they would have to give it to one of them based on how this offseason is going, based on how the rumors are floating around right now. And I just do not like the feel of it. But we will get into the article here. And Keith Pompey put some pretty interesting things in there. Now, I do think it was mostly clickbait. And I know we're in the offseason and it is that time, right, where a lot of people are just checked out mentally. Now, I don't try to clickbait. I just react to the articles and the storylines that are out there. And I just give you my thoughts on them. But Keith Pompey is reporting this information. Like I said, he did mention Jimmy Butler, which we talked about yesterday and reacted to. So be sure to check that out. But before we look at one of the quotes from the article, Sixer Nation, do you think that Jimmy Butler is the right guy right now? Would you give him a max? If Jimmy Butler wanted to be traded and he said, I want to go back to Philly, would you trade for him knowing that you have to give up assets? By the way, that's the difference with him and PG. You have to give up, assets to get him. Would you do that and then pay Jimmy Butler a max contract at age 34? Give me your thoughts. And before we jump into the article quote, a shout out to our sponsor of today's show, and that is BetUS. BetUS, the best out there doing it. Get a 125% deposit match bonus using our link down in the description. 24/7 service, 24-hour payouts. And I was looking through BetUS, and funny enough, they have some of the most unique special odds and promotions. And there was actually one about Jimmy Butler on here. So I want to go ahead and take a look at it and get your thoughts as well, because it says, will Jimmy Butler become an NBA champion before retiring? These are odds that you can't find anywhere else, right? 350 odds. I think it's a pretty good odd, to be honest, right? They have the next team odds, the next coach. They even have LeBron James next team, if not the Lakers. And look who's on this list, the Sixers at plus 800. So they have the fifth best odds to land LeBron if he is not on the Lakers. And just for a little bit of giggles here, at the bottom, they have a ton of Ben Simmons odds, which again, you can bet on right now. It's easy money. Will Ben Simmons be on the Nets roster for game 1 next season? Will Ben Simmons play game 1 of next season? Ben Simmons total regular season games, we're hitting the under, man. Will Ben Simmons retire before the start of the season? Look, you can go and bet on all these odds right now using our link at a 125% deposit match bonus on your first 3 deposits. Shout out to BetUS. All right, let's jump back into it. So we have the Jimmy Butler saga yet again, and the Sixers love continuing to help us relive this pain. Here was a quote from the article. Now, I do not want to pay for Philadelphia Inquirer. I did read the article, and then I tried to go back and read it again, and it said I'm out of free attempts to read it. So shout out to Philly Sixers Galaxy for putting the quote here from the article. It says, the Sixers are prepared to give Jimmy Butler a max contract should extension talks with Miami fall apart. And here's the quote. It's no secret that the Sixers are closely monitoring Jimmy Butler's contract situation with the Miami Heat. According to sources, the Sixers are prepared to give Butler a maximum salary extension if things align and he forces a trade out of Miami. So, couple things come to my mind. And I will say that more into the article, which is why I feel like this was pretty much clickbait. Keith Pompey says the Heat most likely are not going to trade Jimmy Butler because Pat Riley has reiterated, how he's loved Jimmy and how he has been the perfect fit, et cetera, et cetera. So it would take a lot for this to even happen. But we did see that clip about a month ago at the exit presser where Pat Riley said, yo, Jimmy, you got to keep your mouth shut. You're not playing. And it was kind of just a little bit like on edge. And when we look at Jimmy Butler, he wants to get paid. If we look at his contract, he is at the age now where, he wants that final NBA contract, and he's got $48.8 million this season. And then he's got a player option for $52.4. So if you give him a max, again, it's going to be upwards of $50 million. I don't think that's the best way to build this team going forward. I would not give anything more than a 2-year max to any of these guys, right? Like I would not max them out for 3 years unless maybe there was a player option, but it's still very risky. All these guys, Jimmy Butler, PG, even Brandon Ingram, they all miss games. They're not durable enough, and these guys want to be paid $50+ million every single year for not even playing the whole season. So it is tough, but I think what's interesting about this article is that the Sixers are willing to give Jimmy Butler a max at age 34. So you're telling me they weren't willing to give him a max 6 years ago, 5 years ago, when the Sixers had the opportunity to keep him here. Matter of fact, let me take it down memory lane for 1 second. If the Sixers wanted Jimmy Butler to be here bad enough, he would be here. He said this on the podcast with JJ Redick. I've made countless videos about this over the years. I argue with Sixer fans all the time about this. We could talk about Ben Simmons and Brett Brown and how Jimmy wanted South Beach. I agree he wanted to go there. But if the Sixers wanted him bad enough, they would have got it done. But instead, they let him walk. They did a sign and trade, which was awful. They signed Tobias Harris in a panic move, and then they signed Al Horford and then gave Ben Simmons a max contract, the worst sequence that you can ever imagine. And if they had kept Jimmy Butler here, they would probably have a championship or 2 by now. The guy's made 2 finals. He carried a squad of JV guys on his back last year. And really, his playoff performance is the deciding factor on why I would choose him over PG. But again, he's got to stay healthy. Like we look at his regular season numbers, nothing crazy, nothing to get excited about. 20 points per game pretty much, right? 6 assists per game, 5 rebounds. And then you look at his playoff numbers. Last year when they went to the finals, 27 points per game. Year before, 27 points per game. Probably not nearly as good of a 3-point shooter as Paul George, but he just brings that grittiness, right? He can take over the rock. He can be that guy to hit the big time shots. We saw that in his limited time here in Philadelphia. And people love to say he didn't show up in the playoffs in 2018 and, he should have done more. Well, there was no room for him. You had Tobias Harris who needed the ball in his hands. You had Joel Embiid. And then you had Ben Simmons who couldn't shoot a damn jump shot, who had to have the ball in his hands. And it was just very awkward of a fit. I think Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, and Tyrese Maxey would be sensational, but my issue is, can they stay on the floor? And the Sixers love giving these older stars their money way too late, and it's just happened time and time again, and that's why I would be worried about this. If there's no other options, if it came down to this and you know you're in win now mode and you have to pick with one of these guys, and for some reason the Heat do decide it's time to move on, then yes, my choice would be Jimmy Butler because of how he elevates, and I do think Joel and Jimmy have unfinished business, along with Tyrese Maxey. That would be very special, but a lot of dominoes have to fall in place. So, you know, back to this article again, Keith Pompey was literally just trying to get people to read this article, and hopefully somehow, some way, Jimmy asks out and he wants to come back to Philly. I do think he would view this as a destination he wants to come to if he did request a trade, but we are far from that at this point. But keep all these options, all these routes open in your mind, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. Give me your thoughts down below. Appreciate everybody tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.